first of all, let me tell you this. There are many, many people in this room that we see on a daily basis in Nashville that make sure that we stay in direct contact with the people of Maury County so we know exactly what Maury County needs. And we convey that to the people of Nashville. We convey that to the other representatives or the senators. But we work very hard to make sure that we stay close to the elected officials, to the different organizations down here, the different nonprofits, to make sure that when there is a need for Maury County, we know about it and we work to deliver that to come back to Maury County. I'd also like to say thank you for allowing me to serve in the General Assembly. I've done many things in my life, and I can tell you this, there's nothing that I've done that's ever prepares you to go up there to that environment. It is fast-paced. You have to make decisions sometimes rather quickly, but you depend on the camaraderie you build between different representatives and different senators to pool your information and to make the best decision that's possible for not only Maury County that I represent, but for the 6.5 million Tennesseans out there, that things are going very well in Tennessee and we just don't want to mess it up. So I look forward to answering your questions today. I appreciate being able to serve you up in the General Assembly, and we'll have some answers for you soon. Thanks.
There you go. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Next up, we have State Senator Dr. Joey Hensley, representing District 28.
Thank you, and it's certainly great to be here and great to see all of you here, the community leaders that are concerned with your community enough to get up early on Friday morning. I'm a member of this Rotary Club anyway, so I come most of the time. So I'm used to getting up early, and it's a great privilege and honor for you to allow me to represent Maury County in the Senate. That's a privilege that I don't take lightly, and along with Scott and Michael, work hard for you at the state level. We're all fortunate to live in Tennessee, I think the best state in the nation. We were just recognized as being the #1 fiscally conservative state in the nation because of our fiscal policies. We have AAA bond ratings in all three agencies, and Tennessee is attracting businesses. We just heard from the governor's budget a couple weeks ago. We have almost a $2 billion surplus. Our budget this year is about $40.6 billion, almost $2 billion increase. I serve on the Finance Committee and the Revenue Subcommittee, so get to hear all of those tax bills that come through. But we are working for you. We want to hear from you. I always look forward to this meeting that we have every year because we get to hear from you, but we want to hear from you every day, and just as Scott mentioned, we see many people in this room in Nashville a lot of the time because they're up there representing you, and Maury County is a great place to live. We want to make it better. All of you want to make it better, and we just look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Next up, we've got Representative Michael Curcio. Good morning. Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Y'all saw me slide in here like Kramer in the side door, so I apologize for that. My wife and I have 3 children under the age of 9, and she likes to go to the gym very early in the morning, so I can't abandon 3 children or I'll wind up on the front page of the newspaper. So I'll leave the house as soon as I can to get to these meetings in the morning. So thank you for your understanding. Sorry I didn't get here a little bit sooner. But I'm Michael Curcio. As was mentioned before, I am your state representative for the 69th District. So Maury County is fortunate enough actually to have 3 representatives, a senator and 2 representatives as opposed to just 1 rep or 1 senator. And we really do consider that very much a positive. Scott and I, neither one really see, a district line or a border. We basically say, look, give us a call. We want to be able to help you any way that we can. But I represent the square in Columbia, and it goes out to the west through Hampshire and Williamsport. And then I represent all of Hickman County and then the western half of Dixon County, where my wife and I live with our 3 children. So very honored to be able to represent you in the legislature. I want to brag on Maury County and Columbia a little bit. Of course, we know this to be true, but just yesterday I was having lunch with some folks who had done some business with the city, and they made the comment, they said, Columbia and Maury County in general take their role in accessing their state representatives, their state senator, very, very seriously. And I thought, that's very true. But they said we could tell from the first time we met with the city officials or the county officials that they really saw themselves as a player in the state. And as part of a regional community, and so I wanted to pass that comment and that applaud on to you, because I think that's exactly right, and I sense that as your representative. You all stay very engaged. This event is a perfect example of that, and of course there are many other examples. But so thank you for being the leaders that you are in Middle Tennessee, and thank you for allowing us to do what we do for you.
Thank you very much. Thank all three of you for being here this morning and taking some time out of your day to join us. We'll start with the questions. First question is for Representative Curcio. In the governor's State of the State address, he committed to criminal justice reform. How will this impact Maury County and our current programs within the Maury County Jail? Also, are there any bills proposed to change sentencing guidelines?
Thank you, and thank you for the question. You're exactly right. The governor did make criminal justice reform a feature of his State of the State address, and so talk briefly about it. If we asked every person in this room, what does criminal justice reform mean, we would have a unique answer for the exact number of people that were in this room. So it means something different to everybody, and so what the governor did as an acknowledgement of that fact is commissioned a task force with several subcommittees on criminal justice reform that began to convene last year. I served on the Education, Reentry, and Workforce Development subcommittee of that criminal justice reform task force. My wife, for example, who's an elementary teacher, serves on the Drivers of Crime subcommittee, which works with, what are the criminogenic factors that can be identified early on. If a child has a parent who's incarcerated, they're that much more likely to become incarcerated themselves. How do we start to curb that behavior early in life, and so forth? So there's a number of task forces that have been convened on these different topics. Some of them are much more long-term goals. What we identified very quickly was that there's going to be, like with anything else, short-term, intermediate, and long-term goals. And so this year, we're going to be laser-focused on what we see to be really the shovel-ready aspects of that project, if you will. So the thing that we're absolutely honing in on this year is this statistic that of everybody getting out, every person coming out of prison, we have a 50% recidivism rate in Tennessee. So for every 2 people leaving, 1 of them is coming back. Within that 50% recidivism rate, 40% of those are for technical violations. So these are things that if you or I did them, they would not be a crime, but they are a violation of the terms of their parole. And so what we want to do is think long and hard about that. Think about the fact that 95% of the folks who are in our state prisons are getting out, and who they are when they get out has as much to do with the types of programming that we allow them to engage in as it does with their own desire to get better. Some people don't want to get better, and we've absolutely got a spot for them. And so we were not going to give an inch on public safety, but rather look at data-driven approaches to how to attack that recidivism problem. And I think the program that you mentioned in your question here in Maury County is a perfect example of that. Our sheriff, Bucky Rowland, has done incredible work along with a great committed team here that is identified that, with access to education, with support services and wraparound services and community resources, these folks, when they're coming out, will have an option other than returning to a life of crime. If we can address that mental health or substance abuse issue, if we can address those antisocial behaviors that cause them to get in that position to begin with and help work on that, then we can really make sure that they succeed once they get out. So again, not giving an inch on public safety, anybody who would say that this is an effort to empty out prisons or to, be not as tough or harsh on violent crime as we have been in the past is not true. It's more about what happens on the back end. How do we help them on the back end?
Senator Hensley, Representative Cepicky, either one of you have anything to add to that? Like to comment? Okay. Next question for Senator Hensley. The state budget includes $250 million into a trust fund for mental health services. What is the purpose of the funds, and who will directly be served in the short term?
Well, it's funny you should ask that question because I've been asking some of those very same questions. But in the governor's budget, he put over $600 million into education, which was a very good thing. We're increasing teacher pay and putting a lot of money into different initiatives to train teachers. But part of that budget was a $250 million trust fund that was going to be used to fund mental health issues in the schools, and not use that money, but use the interest off that money going forward to pay for these initiatives. And all of those have not been determined yet. I just asked the Commissioner of Finance last week about that, because I really think we could use that trust fund money for other projects, because we're going to be tying up $250 million going forward for these mental health issues. And we put other money in the budget to pay for more school counselors, because we do see the need for mental health help in the schools, teachers dealing with mental problems, with the students coming to school having issues at home and mental health issues. So we are putting more money in the budget already for some more school counselors. But I'm certainly looking into this trust fund that the governor's proposed. I really didn't get very good answers from the commissioner. Maybe one of these two got better answers, but I don't know. But the governor proposes a budget. That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to approve the budget that he proposed, and this is certainly one item that I'm not so sure about. I think we could spend more money. We could spend this money better on a lot of other things. So we'll see what happens. The discussion is still going forward. I think the governor's plan is to have a committee or to look into issues and have that money there going forward to spend for these mental health issues. But we'll see what happens in the final budget, whether that's still in there or not.
All right. Our next question, Mr. Cepicky. The state budget included an increase in education funding. The governor advocated for teacher raises. How do you think those funds should be earmarked to achieve the governor's objective to raise the minimum annual teacher salary?
First of all, sitting on the education committee, when you see all the studies out there about the problems we're having in higher ed with remedial courses, 5.5 to 6 years at UT to get a bachelor's degree, 43% dropout rate of Tennessee Promise students. It's not that we don't have the ability with our professors in our higher ed to generate the graduates that we need. It's that, are they knowing what they're supposed to know when they leave high school? And when you start to drill down on it, folks, it all surfaces back to K through 3. We've got to get the production out of K through 3, and I'm encouraged by what the governor has done in education. If you have followed the bills that I'm running up there, out of my 15 bills, 9 of them are in education, and 8 of them are in K through 3. We passed a law last year because the governor allocates money for teachers' pay year after year after year, and we approve it, and the teachers never see it. The intent is to pay our teachers more money, but somewhere between Nashville and the LEAs, the local school boards, it gets lost in translation. We passed a law last year that said that the local school boards have to report back to the General Assembly by the end of this fiscal year in June where that money from last year's 3% was spent on. What was it spent on? Who received it? Trying to close that loop on when we increase the instructional line for our teachers in the budget, we really mean for that money to go to teachers' salaries. Our teachers in Tennessee are not on pace with the surrounding states we have, and we're losing some of our best teachers to other states. We have to drill down on this, and we have to make sure that our teachers are paid appropriately for the work that they're doing and the degrees that they have. I think we also have to look at the classroom. I found out yesterday that there's a bill I'm running that'll be on notice on Tuesday about PE, okay, about physical education and about recess. And what the bill does basically, and I'll be real brief with this, is in K through 2, it allows our students to have 2 minimum 20-minute recesses a day. 2 20-minute recesses a day. I'm 53 years old. I remember back in the day, we had 2 recesses a day. We're probably a lot longer than that, right? The bill's going to be opposed up in Nashville by some groups up there, and here's what they've told me, and this is the problem with our early education. Representative Cepicky, we don't have time in the day to give our kids another 20-minute recess in K through 2 because of all the other things that our teachers have to do besides teaching. You see the fundamental problem right there? We pay our teachers to teach, but we're making them do all this other stuff that prevents them from teaching our kids, which is leading to the 37% literacy rate in 3rd grade, the 28% literacy rate in 8th grade, and then the problems we're having in higher ed. I think we need to really look at what we're asking our teachers to do, what we're asking our students to learn in K through 3, so that they can focus on the fundamentals of reading, writing, and math, be successful, become motivated students so that when they move up through the higher grades, instead of a teacher in 8th grade having a 28% literacy rate with their students, what if they had an 80% literacy rate with their students? What kind of classroom is that for our teachers? So I'm all in on education, folks. I'm going to do the best I can. We're going to work hard to make sure that our students get the best education they can, and our teachers are paid appropriately. Thank you.
Certainly, education is very important to all of us. I serve on the Education Committee in the Senate. Scott does in the House, and most of the education bills he has in the House, I have in the Senate. But the governor funded $117 million, which was a 4% increase in the instructional component of the BEP funding. Last year was about $71 million. This year, $117 million. Governor is proposing trying to increase the minimum teacher salary from an average of $36,000 to $40,000 over the next 2 years. But every year, people hear that 4%, that $117 million was a 4% increase in the instructional component, and we mean for the teachers to get a 4% raise. But that doesn't always happen because the money goes back to the local school boards and they can spend it on other instructional components. But just like Scott said, we want the local schools to tell us this year how they spent the money last year, because we want teachers to get that 4% raise. But education is important to all of us. The governor, too, he put a lot of money into it for different initiatives, for teachers, for reading, and so we can increase our proficiency in reading. It's so sad that only a third of our students are reading on grade level in the 3rd grade, and we just have to improve that.
Just want to remind everybody also, don't forget, if you have a question, write on the note cards, hold it up. One of our committee members will come by and pick that up. All right. Senator Hensley, the proposed training facility to be built on the Columbia State campus intersects with and supports the governor's education initiatives and our own Advanced Maury strategic plan. In addition to local pledges of funds, what can be done at the legislative level to make it a higher priority?
Well, it was on the capital project list, and the governor proposed going down 4 levels in the capital projects. There's a list of capital projects across the state for higher education. The Tennessee Higher Education Commission proposes those and makes a list of those. The governor usually funds so many of those, and they went down 4 on the list. The Columbia State project was 6 on the list. So we're trying to still get that funded in the budget, but we just have to work because there's a lot of projects across the state. But we certainly support Columbia State, and Maury County's very fortunate to have Columbia State here. And I saw Dr. Smith here, who does a great job at the school. But we all work hard trying to get those projects funded.
To expand on that, last year, I think we were all involved in a meeting up in Nashville when Dr. Smith, Bethany Lay, Krista Martin, your mayors, members of the education our groups in Maury County, we all went to Governor Lee. And we expressed the concern that we have and the benefit that new building would have for not only Maury County, but the southern Middle Tennessee region of giving kids a better opportunity in life. That we constantly remind the governor's staff that Maury County and southern Middle Tennessee together need that new building so that we can have a new group of students that are ready to perform those jobs, and then bring those, because we have those students that are able to perform those jobs, we can go out with Maury Alliance, we can recruit those companies to come to Maury County and southern Middle Tennessee so people don't have to drive north all the time for high-paying jobs. They can stay right here in our community. So that's a high priority. Dr. Smith knows that. We talk about it all the time. That's a high priority of mine to try to, if we can find a way to get the governor to move that up the chain so that we can get that building ground broken and start to build.
Well, no, thank you. I don't want to belabor the point, but I just want to say this is another great example of how forward-leaning Maury County really has been. And again, to applaud the work of Dr. Smith. But you know, when you've got a governor like Governor Lee, who is very interested in rural development in Tennessee and understands the needs of rural communities, it makes it that much easier to approach when you've got a comprehensive package, a comprehensive plan that obviously an entire community has rallied around and given support for. So that makes our job that much easier to be able to advocate for those projects. So I just kind of wanted to echo my earlier comments about how organized we are as a community in having a listening ear on the first floor of the Capitol and a governor who really cares about rural communities. I really see high hopes for our success rate moving forward.
All right, thank you. All right, next is for Representative Cepicky. With the rapid growth in Maury County and the increased traffic, what is the status of the expansion of Bear Creek Pike to the I-65 interchange?
Easy question, right? First of all, we need to start being prepared for the Bear Creek interchange, okay? Soon that's going to be let out to bid, and that process is going to start. So all of our lives who drive and use the Bear Creek access to Interstate 65, you're going to have to be ready to start to use 31 North or an alternative. And I think we're going to see, with that happening, how important the 4-lane of Bear Creek to the interstate is going to be to not only Maury County, but southern Middle Tennessee. When you start to choke off that one access point, it's going to put a lot of pressure elsewhere. You know, we had a conversation about 2 weeks ago with TDOT on another project west of Highway 31 on the bypass. And before it was the most polite no I've ever heard in my life, over 30 minutes. But then the conversation shifted to, so what about Bear Creek 4-lane to the interstate? And TDOT's response was, we know it's a priority. We know it has to happen. We're trying to allocate and find funds to do that. We know it's important, not so much for Maury County, but for everybody west of us and south of us on how they're going to get to those high-paying jobs. So we know, I would say, if not on a weekly basis, but for sure, whenever we cross paths with TDOTs, and I'm probably speaking for all of us, that's the number one priority we have, is we have got to get Bear Creek 4-lane to the interstate. If we can get that, I think we will transform Columbia to even greater heights of economic growth, to where our tourism will open up even more, our job opportunities for people will open up even more, and then our quality of life with people saying, you know what, I can come to Maury County, hopefully work here, or if I have to work north, I can get to the interstate quicker so I can spend more time at home with my family. So it's a high priority we're working very hard for.
All right. Representative Curcio. The Governor Lee has been an advocate for rural development projects like broadband, bridges, and economic development, and it seems slow. How do we better match the priority with the timeline?
Well, again, thank you. Again, this year there was money announced in the governor's budget for additional broadband expansion. Last couple of weeks, many of us were visited by our electric cooperatives and our utilities in our district. They had their days on the Hill, so had the opportunity to meet with Duck River when they came up, and also Meriwether Lewis Electric Cooperative when they visited me last week. And a lot of the broadband grant dollars have been passed through USDA and through other federal loan programs, but obviously the money the state is putting up helps, match for those projects as well. You're right, the progress is slow, but it's very, very expensive, very, cost-intensive work, and it's all about uptake, right? So we all say we want access to broadband, but when these, companies are looking at, going down a country highway and how many folks are going to take that service, they've got to obviously have an adherence to their bottom line as well, which is why I think as we look at this moving forward, I think it's right that government really commit resources and funds to this, because the privates are just not going to be able to get it done in the very rural populated areas. Think about our electric cooperatives and where we were 100 years ago as a country. There are certainly parts of my district that would still not have electricity if it weren't for a cooperative, if it weren't for a commitment on the behalf of government to make sure that utility made it to those areas. And more we're really seeing broadband, as a utility, especially in our rural areas where, again, there's not, there wouldn't be a real profit motive to get it to those places. So that's something that we're continuing to commit to working on. And as technology changes too, it'll be interesting to see, how the delivery of those services change. We saw bills last year dealing with 5G, dealing with boosters, dealing with, all sorts of different types of technology that we're just now beginning to learn and understand, and that's going to change over the next 5 years, over the next 10 years. In fact, when I met with Dixon Electric and Meriwether Lewis and Duck River, all of their plans for expansion included the assumption that within the next 8 years, they would have to retool what they're building now. So, that's just kind of the nature of where we are with technology. So, it's a moving target. The good news is there's more folks with access today than there were yesterday and the day before and the year before and so forth. But it is a big project, and it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of resources to get it done.
Well, I just add one thing. The governor proposed putting $100 million in the budget this year, and that money going back to the local governments, $50 million for counties and $50 million for the cities. And Columbia is supposed to get about $450,000, Spring Hill about $450,000, and in Maury County about $650,000. I would like to see that increase, because we certainly see the need in the local governments for money all the time for different projects. In broadband, we put $25 million this year in the budget, and we've put money over the last few years. We approved co-ops to be able to provide broadband, and many of them are. Duck River is doing part of their service area. Meriwether Lewis is doing all of their service area with broadband. So it's slowly increasing. Everybody sees the need. I'm sponsoring one of the governor's bills to help to attract more industry to the rural counties, and rural counties tier 3 and 4 are getting are going to profit from it more, even though Maury County is not a tier 3 or 4 county. They're a tier 1 county, so they don't get some of the benefits of some of the distressed counties. But the governor is focused on rural areas, rural economic development, and broadband. Eventually, we have to get it all across the state.
All right. And next question here for Senator Hensley. What is the thinking behind the recently introduced bill that would remove licensing from a number of Tennessee professions?
Do you mean the professional privilege tax or licensing from different occupations? Okay, well, we are certainly trying to make it so that more professions people can access professions without being licensed. I think Tennessee has more professions that require a license, and many of those are not health related and different issues. Well, we are looking at all of those, trying to make it easier for people to come to Tennessee for different professions and not require a license. And there's another issue. Many of the professions have to pay a professional privilege tax, $400 professional privilege tax. There were 22 different professions. Last year we cut out 15 of those professions. There's still 7 left, physicians, attorneys, lobbyists, and some financial planners and brokers still have to pay that fee. So we're trying to eliminate that totally. The governor has proposed cutting it in half for those professions from 400 down to 200, but I'd like to see it cut out completely. But we're trying to make it so that people can come to Tennessee and not require a license in many professions that have been licensed in the past.
Thank you. All right. Representative Curcio, we talked earlier about the justice reform and the impact to Maury County, our current programs with the jail. Are there any bills proposed to change sentencing guidelines?
Thank you. I failed to answer that before. There will be a couple of bills this year that will change a few targeted sentences. So, for example, there's been a problem, especially in our more urban areas, of folks obtaining guns by stealing them from cars. There are several proposals that came out initially that would criminalize a victim if they did not report that theft within a certain amount of time, or somehow criminalize the victim in another way because their gun was stolen, the assumption being that the victim somehow did something wrong. I and my colleagues in the legislature do not believe in criminalizing victims, and so one of the things that you'll see this year is really, as opposed to that, it will be a step towards making the theft of a firearm a felony. So right now, the theft of a firearm is treated like any other theft, so it's a percentage of the value of the object. So if you steal a TV, the punishment relates to the percentage of the value of the object. Same thing goes for a handgun. So if I've got a 25 or a 30-year-old handgun, it's not worth very much, but it's very lethal, and so we feel like the theft of that firearm should be treated much differently than the theft of an object with a similar value, monetary value. So there'll be some targeted things like that. As far as a complete overhaul of adult sentencing, when we did this in the late 80s, it took about 4 years. It was a very, very big lift. Those of you who practice law in the room, if the sentencing grid makes any more sense to you than it does to me, I would love a TED Talk after this if you've got the opportunity to explain it to me. But we've set up a structure that sounded really, really tough on crime as a way to sort of, for politicians, like, to be able to thump our chests and go home and say, oh, well, we're going to punish folks for the maximum, knowing full well that we didn't have the prison capacity to actually carry out those sentences. And so that's where we get these sentence ranges and percentage of time served and so forth. So there is absolutely an overhaul of the adult sentencing code coming. It will not be this year. The task force on sentencing has convened a couple of times. Their work will intensify after we adjourn this year, and I think you'll see it kind of taken in tranches. I think you'll see a big first step, Lord willing, next year during legislative session, but I don't imagine that all of it will happen in 1 year. Like I said, when we redid this in the 80s, it took about 4. Hopefully it won't take us that long, but I think it's going to be a multi-step process. So there'll be a couple of targeted things this year to make sure that we maybe right-size some sentences, increase penalties on those who are really affecting our criminal justice system today, and then a much larger overhaul coming after that.
Thank you for that answer. And this is for the whole panel. Tennessee's Constitution is an important document for laying out the basic structure of our government and rights of citizens. It seems as if constitutional amendment proposals are becoming increasingly more common. Are we trivializing the Constitution, and why are we seeing so many proposals?
Thank you. I was actually in a conversation yesterday about constitutional amendments, so it's fresh on my mind. But You're right. We certainly amend the Tennessee Constitution a lot more often than we amend the federal Constitution. Just a brief word about how that works. So in order to amend the Constitution, there is a specific dollar amount that's assigned to that. I think one of the things that has made it a little bit more common is that, 10, 12 years ago, the fiscal note attached to a constitutional amendment was about $25,000 or $30,000. As ad space has come down in price, those fiscal notes have also come down, and so I think part of this you're seeing is that they've kind of gone on sale a little bit. The fiscal note on a constitutional amendment's about $10,000 now, and so, but as we look at the budget each year, the Secretary of State is typically willing to fund about 5 of those constitutional amendments to actually put them on the ballot. So regardless of those that pass, I think the effort would be to get them all behind the budget, which is where they go when they're not in the governor's budget. And then once we've got, a collection of those, then I think you'll see an effort to really prioritize on the back end. So just because one passes through both chambers doesn't necessarily mean you're going to see it on the ballot. The other piece of this is that you do have some pent-up desire. When Republicans first took the legislature a little over a decade ago now, there were some long-standing things that we tried to get accomplished that we were able to codify in code, and now you're seeing them come behind with constitutional amendments. So, for example, right to work. Obviously, that the law was passed in Tennessee a number of years ago, but there's the follow-up effort this year to codify that in the Constitution. So I think you're seeing some big priorities kind of get ticked off. The other thing is, if you don't get your constitutional amendment on deck this year, you're going to have to wait because of the way the process works, a very long time to get another crack at that apple. So, but rest assured, I think the leadership in the House and the Senate is definitely going to, prioritize those and try not to load up the ballot. You get voter fatigue very, very easily. I think about 3 amendments, and people are kind of tired of reading them. So, meeting with the Attorney General's office, they've got all sorts of data and statistics on, how many votes the First Amendment gets versus the Second, the Third, or the Fourth, and we're cognizant of that as well, because you certainly don't want to, throw an effort out there and then waste an opportunity for something that's really a worthwhile effort.
There has been more of them, but it still is a difficult process because a constitutional amendment has to pass with a simple majority in one legislative session, and then has to pass with a 2/3 majority in the next legislative session. So it takes at least 3 years to get that on the ballot, and then it goes on the next governor's race. Well, when the next governor's on the ballot, it's on the ballot with the governor's race, and it needs to get a majority plus one of the people that voted in the governor's race. So it's still a difficult process, and it's like Michael said, it does cost something, and we do have one coming this year about right to work. There was a very important one that took many years for us to get in our Constitution, that our Constitution did not guarantee the right to an abortion, which our state Supreme Court had said our state Constitution guaranteed the right to an abortion. So that took many years for us to get that constitutional amendment in the Constitution. So many things are just important to people, and they want to put it in the Constitution. Even though we've had this right to work law for many years, we're trying to put that in the Constitution. But everyone has to be passed for the General Assembly, and then give the people the right to vote on it.
All right, and this will be our last question for the morning. Nashville Highway between Columbia and Spring Hill has turned into somewhat of a racetrack. What can be done to reduce the risk of accidents and fatalities? We see police presence, but little to none on the Columbia side.
Well, I'll start off there. Is Bear Creek 4-lane to the interstate. I think I saw a traffic study, and I know there's people in here that I'm going to try to guess here, but I think it's roughly 37,000 cars a day head north on Highway 31 and roughly 11,000 head east on Bear Creek Pike. There's more opportunity for us to get people easier access to the interstate, probably more in a safer way if we can get Bear Creek expanded to 4-lane and take some of that pressure off of headed 31 north. But I know the THPA and THP, we know that they spend a lot of time down in Maury County. Trust me, I get the phone calls on it all the time. But they're here because they're trying to promote safety. Maury County does have an issue with traffic incidents, and so the Highway Patrol is going to focus on that to try to remind people, slow down, buckle up, stay off your cell phone, and just focus on driving. So I think if we all take a conscious effort with that, of making sure that we're driving as safely as possible, I think we'll see less need for those pretty Tennessee Highway Patrol police cars roaming around Maury County, and I think all of our lives and wallets will be a little bit safer. Thanks. Good. Good.
All right. Well, thank you all. That concludes our State Eggs and Issues breakfast. I want to remind everyone that breakfast with Mayor Ogles on February 27th will be at the Muletown Lumber Yard. So please come out to that. And then Farm and City breakfast on March 6th. Yes.
Some of you may be curious about the yellow books sitting up here. We've all thought that it was important to provide those to you. There's 9 more left up here. That is the Blue Book of Tennessee. It talks about, if you want to know everything about Tennessee, it's in that book. But it's yellow this year to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, which was women's suffrage. These books are free to you. Please come up and take them. They are great historical documents that you can page through, and you will learn everything you want to know about Tennessee.
All right. Thank you, Representative Curcio, Senator Hensley, and Representative Cepicky. We appreciate your time this morning. Everyone have a wonderful morning.